At exactly 12 a.m., my phone lit up like a warning siren. Samantha, your apartment is closer to the airport. I'm dropping off my 3 kids. No, hey. No, are you awake? Just a decision, delivered like a package with my name on it. I sat up in bed, heart thudding, rereading the message like the words might rearrange themselves into something reasonable. I typed back with shaking fingers. Me, I'm not home. 3 dots appeared immediately. Samantha, Mom has your spare key, she's letting us in. My stomach went cold. Not because of the kids, because of what that sentence meant. My front door wasn't mine in their minds. It was a suggestion. I stared into my dark living room, at the quiet I'd fought for, and felt something inside me click sharp, calm, final. Then I smiled. Not because it was funny. Because for the first time, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. My name is Grace. I'm 33 years old, and in my family, I'm known as the dependable one. That sounds flattering until you understand what it really means. Dependable means I answer the phone, no matter the hour. Dependable means I don't say no until I'm already exhausted. Dependable means everyone else gets to fall apart because I'll quietly hold things together. On paper, my life looks fine. Better than fine, actually. I work a demanding corporate job tied to the airline industry, long shifts, constant pressure, schedules that blur weekdays into weekends. I earn enough to live comfortably in a 1-bedroom apartment in a city my parents still describe as too expensive for one person. In my family, that comfort translates to one unspoken rule: Grace can afford it. My younger sister, Samantha, is 30. She has 3 kids under the age of 10 and a husband, Ryan, who is always between opportunities. He's never unemployed, just on the verge of something big. A new idea, a new plan, a new excuse. Samantha likes to joke that I'm lucky. Lucky I don't have kids. Lucky I can sleep. Lucky I have money. What she never says is how often that luck becomes her safety net. When her rent was late, she called me crying. When daycare raised its rates, she panicked and called me. When one of the kids needed something last-minute, school supplies, medical fees, a birthday she'd forgotten, I was the call she made before even checking her account. And every time, she ended the same way. Just this once, Grace. I promise. My mom, Deborah, always followed up. She had a way of making requests sound like moral obligations. You don't understand how hard it is with kids, she'd say. Family helps family. You don't want your nieces and nephew to suffer, do you? My dad, Thomas, usually stayed quiet. He'd sit back, nodding occasionally, letting my mom speak for both of them. Silence, in our family, was agreement. I didn't always resent it. At first, I told myself this was just what being the oldest meant. Being responsible, being strong, being needed. But over time, something shifted. I stopped being asked. I started being assigned. Babysitting wasn't a favor, it was assumed. Money wasn't help, it was expected. My apartment wasn't my home, it was convenient. And the worst part? Every time I hesitated, every time I tried to explain that I was tired or busy or stretched thin, the reaction was the same. Samantha would sigh and say, "Must be nice to only worry about yourself." My mom would look disappointed and say, "You've changed," and I'd fold. Because disappointing them felt worse than disappointing myself. Until the night Samantha decided my home was available, whether I was there or not. It's easy to miss the moment when kindness turns into obligation, because it never announces itself. There's no warning sign, no clear line. It just shifts, quietly, gradually. Until one day, you look around and realize you're standing in a role you never agreed to audition for. At first, helping my sister felt reasonable, normal. She was overwhelmed. I wasn't. I had a steady income, no kids, and a life that at least from the outside looked manageable. The first call came late one night. "Grace, I'm freaking out," Samantha whispered. "We're short on rent, just this once. I swear I'll pay you back." I didn't hesitate. I sent the money before she finished explaining. I told myself this was what sisters did. That someday, if I ever needed her, she'd do the same. Then came the next thing. The electric bill was higher than expected. The grocery budget didn't stretch far enough this month. Daycare fees went up without warning. There was always urgency, always a reason it couldn't wait. Every request ended the same way. I promise this is the last time. It never was. My mom made sure the pressure never fully lifted. She had a way of stepping in right when my resolve started to form. "You don't know how hard it is with kids," she'd say, as if that single sentence erased everything else. "You're lucky you only have yourself to worry about." Avidly dated from Miss B. Family helps family, Grace. That phrase became a hammer. It flattened every boundary before I could even build one. Whenever I hesitated, just hesitated, my mom's tone changed. Not angry, disappointed, like I was failing some invisible test of who I was supposed to be. "I didn't raise you to think like this," she said once, after I asked for a few days before sending money for a medical expense. "You're not the kind of person who turns her back on family." Samantha didn't need to say much. She mastered silence instead. She'd go quiet on the phone, let the pause stretch, then sigh. "I guess we'll figure something out," she'd say softly, and somehow, that felt worse than begging. Because figuring it out always meant the kids going without, and I couldn't live with that, so I paid. Again. And again. By the time Samantha had her third child, I wasn't just helping in emergencies anymore. I was planning my life around her needs. I started turning down invitations, postponing things I wanted, telling myself I could do it later after things stabilized for her. They never did. I stopped buying things without doing mental math first. New shoes? That's groceries for Samantha's kids. A weekend away? That's half a daycare bill. Even small indulgences came with guilt attached, like I was stealing from someone more deserving. My phone buzzing started to make my chest tighten. A message from Samantha no longer meant a conversation. It meant a problem, a request, a responsibility already assigned to me. What hurt the most was realizing how invisible my own limits had become. No one asked if I was tired. No one asked if I could afford it. No one asked if I wanted to. They assumed, and I let them. Because every time I tried to push back, I was reminded subtly or directly that saying no would make me selfish, cold, ungrateful, a bad sister, a bad daughter, so I kept saying yes. Until the night my sister decided my home was available without my permission, and I finally understood that I wasn't being helped into this role anymore. I had been placed in it. That night I didn't feel dramatic. I didn't feel angry. I felt tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. I had just gotten home a few hours earlier, dropping my bag by the door, kicking off my shoes without bothering to line them up. My apartment was quiet, the good kind of quiet. No TV, no voices. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the distant city noise through the windows. I remember thinking, I made it through today. I was halfway through reheating leftovers when my phone buzzed. 12 a.m. Samantha's name lit up the screen. For a second, I considered not opening it. I already knew that nothing good ever came after midnight in my family. But habit won. Hope, maybe. I opened the message. "Your apartment is closer to the airport. I'm dropping off my 3 kids." No, question mark. No pause. Just a statement, as if it had already happened. I stared at the screen, waiting for context. For the rest of the sentence. For something that made it reasonable. Nothing came. My chest tightened. I typed back slowly, choosing words the way you choose steps on ice. "I'm not home." The reply came almost instantly. "Mom has your spare key. She's letting us in. I don't need to keepin." I didn't respond right away. I just stood there in my kitchen, phone in my hand, feeling something inside me go cold and still. Not fear, recognition. That sentence explained so much more than this one night. It explained why my no never stuck, why my boundaries always felt temporary, why my home had never fully felt safe from family expectations. My spare key wasn't for emergencies, it was insurance. A workaround. A way to make sure my consent was optional. I walked into my living room and looked around like I was seeing it for the first time. The couch I paid for. The bookshelves I built myself. The quiet I'd earned by working myself into the ground. In their minds, it wasn't my space. It was convenient space. I thought about my schedule. Early mornings, late nights, days when I barely had the energy to cook, let alone take care of 3 kids. I thought about the assumption that I'd rearrange everything without complaint again. Something deep in my chest finally snapped into place. Not rage, clarity. I sat down, took a breath, and set my phone face down on the table. For the first time in years, I didn't try to explain. I didn't try to negotiate. I didn't try to make it work. Instead, I opened my contacts and called the front desk. A man answered, calm and professional. "Front desk, this is Luis." "Hi," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "This is Grace Parker in 14B. I need to ask about changing my locks." There was a pause. "Of course, Miss Parker. Is everything okay?" "Not yet," I said honestly. "But it will be." I explained that I needed the locks rekeyed first thing in the morning. That no one, not family, not anyone was to be let into my apartment without me physically present. Luis listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "We can do that at 8 a.m. I'll also leave a note for the doorman." "Thank you," I said, my throat tightening. Then, because I knew my family too well, I added, "My mom may claim I approved it." Luis gave a quiet, understanding laugh. "We'll follow your instructions." I hung up and leaned back against the couch, my heart racing. My phone buzzed again. Then again, I didn't look. For the first time, the fear that usually followed their messages didn't show up. In its place was something new, relief. Because the truth was simple, even if it hurt. If my family could walk into my home without my permission, then saying nothing was no longer an option. That night, I didn't fall asleep easily, but when I did, it was with the strange, steady knowledge that everything was about to change. I didn't have to wait long. Less than 10 minutes after I called the front desk, my phone started buzzing again, harder this time. Not texts. Calls. "Mom." I stared at her name until it stopped, then started again. The familiar pressure rose in my chest, that instinct to answer quickly, to smooth things over before they escalated. I didn't do that anymore. On the third ring, I picked up. "Grace," she said sharply, skipping hello like it was a luxury we didn't have. "What is this I'm hearing about you refusing to help your sister?" "I'm not refusing to help," I said calmly. "I'm refusing to be volunteered," she scoffed. "Don't play semantics with me. Samantha finally gets something nice, and you're trying to ruin it." "I didn't plan her trip," I replied. "I have work. I'm not even home. I can't take 3 kids for 2 weeks." "You're exaggerating," she snapped. "They'll be in school most of the day. You barely stay home anyway, what's the difference?" The words landed harder than she probably intended. "My home is where I recover," I said slowly. "Those days matter." She sighed loudly, the kind of sigh meant to signal disappointment rather than fatigue. "You've changed," she said. "Money has made you cold." I felt something twist in my chest, but I didn't retreat. "I didn't change," I said. "I just stopped being scared." That earned me silence. Then her voice dropped. Lower, more controlled. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "The kids already know they're staying with you. Samantha and Ryan have non-refundable tickets. There is no backup plan." There it was, the trap laid bare. Make it inevitable. Make me the villain if I refused. My heart pounded, but my voice didn't shake. "No," I said. She inhaled sharply. "What did you say?" I said no, I repeated. "You don't get to promise my time, my home, or my life to someone else without asking." Her tone hardened. "After everything we've done for you." "I've given Samantha thousands of dollars over the years," I interrupted, surprising even myself. "Rent, bills, emergencies. I've rearranged my life more times than I can count. This isn't help anymore. This is expectation." She went quiet, then laughed a short, humorless sound. "So now you're keeping score?" "I'm setting boundaries," I said. "And I'm changing my locks." "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "I already scheduled it," I replied. Her voice rose, sharp and shaking. "You're threatening your own family?" "I'm protecting myself," I said. "And if you show up anyway and leave the kids without my consent, I'll call the appropriate authorities. Not to hurt you, but because that wouldn't be safe." There it was, the line she'd always used when she was losing control. "If you do this," she said, venomous and precise, "you're dead to me." My throat tightened. The old version of me would have panicked, apologized, begged her to calm down. Instead, I closed my eyes and took a breath. "Okay," I said quietly. The silence on the other end was absolute. Then the line went dead. I lowered the phone and sat there in the dark, shaking not from fear but from the aftershock of finally saying what I meant. The guilt came rushing in, loud and familiar, telling me I was cruel, ungrateful, selfish. But underneath it was something steadier, resolve. Because for the first time, I hadn't argued my way out of a corner. I'd stepped out of it entirely, and I knew the real confrontation hadn't happened yet. It was coming in the morning. The locks were changed at exactly 8 a.m. I watched the maintenance worker test the door twice, the soft click of the new mechanism sounding louder than it should have. New keys, new access, new rules. "Everything's set, Miss Parker," he said kindly. "Thank you," I replied, gripping the key a little too tightly. At the front desk, Luis met my eyes and gave a small nod, nothing dramatic, just quiet confirmation that my instructions were on record. "No one upstairs without you," he said. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all morning. For a few hours, nothing happened. No calls, no texts. The silence felt suspicious, like the pause before turbulence. I went out to grab coffee, telling myself I was being paranoid. Telling myself maybe, just maybe, they'd finally listened. When I came back, latte in one hand, bag in the other, I saw them, my sister, my mother, my brother-in-law, and 3 kids standing in the middle of the lobby with suitcases almost as big as they were. My heart dropped straight through my chest. Samantha was already mid-argument, her voice sharp and frantic. "This is ridiculous," she snapped at the doorman. "We're her family. She knows we're coming." The doorman, Mr. Grant, calm and unmoving, shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I have instructions from Miss Parker." Mom stood beside her, lips pressed thin, pointing dramatically toward the elevators like she could will them to open. "This is her mother," she said. She approved it. Mr. Grant didn't budge. "I'm still unable to allow access." Then his eyes flicked to me. Samantha followed his gaze and spotted me instantly. Her face lit up not with relief, but triumph. "Grace," she called loudly. "Tell him to stop this nonsense and let us upstairs." Every head in the lobby turned. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Not because I was ashamed, but because this was exactly what they wanted. An audience. Pressure. Optics. Mom stepped toward me, her tone suddenly soft, performative. "There you are, sweetheart," she said. "Come on. Don't do this here. Don't do this here." As if they hadn't dragged it here on purpose, Samantha crouched down next to the kids and smiled brightly. "Say thank you to Aunt Grace," she chirped. "You're staying with her for a bit, remember?" One of the kids waved. Something twisted painfully in my chest. That was the weapon. Not yelling, not threats. The kids. Ryan finally spoke, trying to sound reasonable. "Grace, it's just 2 weeks," he said. "We really need this break." I set my coffee down on the front desk so my hands would be free. Then I took a breath. "No," I said. Samantha blinked. "What?" I said no, I repeated, my voice steady despite the pounding in my ears. "You can't show up with suitcases and kids and expect me to comply because you're already here." Mom's expression hardened. "You are humiliating us," she hissed. "You put yourselves here," I replied quietly. "You were told no." Samantha's voice rose, sharp and desperate. "These tickets were expensive. We already checked out of the house." "Then you should have arranged childcare," I said. "Like parents." The lobby went silent. Samantha stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. "You can't do this," she whispered. "They're your nieces and nephew." I looked at the kids again, confused, tired, caught in something they didn't understand. "I love them," I said. "That's why I'm not going to use them as leverage." Mom stepped closer, her voice low and furious. "You're choosing yourself over your family." I nodded once. "Yes," I said. "I am." Then I turned to Mr. Grant. "They are not on my guest list," I said clearly. "Please don't let them upstairs." "Oh, in that stage. In that—" "No," he nodded. "Understood, Miss Parker." Samantha's face crumpled into disbelief. "You're choosing money over us," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "I'm choosing safety," I said. "And boundaries." Mom's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. "You're dead to me." The words still landed. They always did, but they didn't break me. "Okay," I said softly. For a moment, no one moved. Then Samantha grabbed a suitcase handle too hard, nearly tipping it over. "Fine," she snapped. "We'll figure it out without you." They turned and dragged the kids and luggage toward the exit. The doors slid shut behind them. The lobby fell quiet again. I stood there, shaking not from fear, but from the aftermath of finally standing my ground. It hurt, but beneath the hurt was something I'd never felt before: relief, and the knowledge that there was no going back now. The doors closed behind them with a soft, final hiss. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The lobby felt strangely hollow, like all the noise had been sucked out at once. Mr. Grant returned to his desk. Someone cleared their throat. Life resumed, indifferent to what had just cracked open inside me. I picked up my coffee. My hands were shaking so badly I had to steady the cup against the counter. "Are you okay, Miss Parker?" Mr. Grant asked quietly. I nodded. It took a second for my voice to work. "I will be." Up in my apartment, the quiet felt heavier than usual. No longer peaceful, not yet comforting. I paced. I sat. I stood again. My phone lay face down on the table like it might bite me if I touched it. I didn't have to wait long. The first text came from my mom. "Mom, you humiliated us." I didn't reply. Then another. "Mom, your father is furious. The kids are confused. I hope you're proud of yourself." I stared at the words, feeling the old reflex kick in the urge to explain, to soften, to take responsibility for emotions that weren't mine. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. 3 hours later, curiosity got the better of me. I opened social media. There it was, a photo of Samantha on a beach, oversized sunglasses, a bright drink with a tiny umbrella in her hand. The caption read, "Finally, taking time for us. Number deserved, number blessed." My stomach dropped. So much for no backup plan. So much for "we're stuck if you don't help." They had options. They always had options. They just preferred the one that cost them nothing. I laughed once short and sharp, not because it was funny, but because it was painfully predictable. The story they'd told me for years collapsed under the weight of a single photo. That night, messages trickled in from extended family. A cousin I barely spoke to. "Hey, what happened with your mom?" An aunt. "Your mother seems really upset. Are you okay?" I checked my mom's page again. She'd posted one of her long, carefully worded messages, vague enough to avoid details, emotional enough to collect sympathy. Some children forget who sacrificed everything for them. Imagine raising someone who values comfort over family. "Please pray for my heart." Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. "You're such a good mother. Family comes first. Stay strong." For a moment, shame burned hot in my chest. A familiar urge rose, the need to defend myself publicly, to list every dollar, every late-night call, every boundary crossed. Instead, I closed the app. If there was one thing I'd learned in my line of work, it was this: you can't control the weather. You can only secure the aircraft. So I did something different. I opened a folder on my laptop and started documenting everything. Bank transfers, dates, amounts, messages, screenshots. Not out of spite, out of self-protection. Because for the first time, I understood that boundaries weren't just emotional. They were practical, legal, necessary. The next few days were eerily quiet. No emergency calls. No guilt-laced messages. No requests framed as love. At first, the silence felt wrong, like a frequency had dropped out of my life. Then slowly it started to feel like relief. I slept through the night. I cooked real meals. I sat on my couch without bracing for my phone to buzz. And somewhere in that quiet, a realization settled in. They hadn't stopped needing help. They had just lost access to me. And that meant the story they'd been telling, that they couldn't survive without my sacrifice, was never true to begin with. It was just convenient. The quiet didn't disappear overnight. It stretched on, unfamiliar and fragile, like I might scare it away if I moved too fast. For the first time in years, my calendar belonged to me. No last-minute babysitting requests. No emergencies that somehow only I could fix. No subtle reminders that my life was less important because it was quieter. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. How tense my shoulders always were. How often I checked my phone even when it hadn't buzzed. How deeply I'd internalized the idea that rest had to be earned by exhaustion. A week after the lobby incident, I scheduled my first therapy session. I told the therapist everything: the money, the guilt, the spare key, the way my mother spoke as if my boundaries were betrayals. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something that made my chest ache. "This isn't you being difficult," she said. "This is you stepping out of a role you were assigned without consent. She explained concepts I'd never had language for before. Parentification, emotional coercion, financial pressure disguised as love. They trained you to feel responsible for their comfort, she said. Of course, saying no feels terrifying. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Those words stayed with me. I made small, deliberate changes. I removed my mom from any accounts where she didn't need access. I canceled the automatic transfers I'd set up just in case. I stopped explaining my decisions. When Samantha texted weeks later, testing the waters with a casual, "How are you?" I replied politely and briefly. No openings, no apologies, no offers. My dad called once. He cleared his throat, the way he always did before uncomfortable conversations. "You know your mother is very upset," he said. "I know," I replied. There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, "I've seen the bank statements," he admitted quietly. "I know how much you've helped." I sat down, stunned. "I should have spoken up sooner," he added. I didn't. It wasn't a full apology. It didn't erase years of silence. But it mattered. For the first time, I wasn't the only one acknowledging reality. I started doing things just for myself. Small things at first. A massage without guilt. A weekend away without checking my phone. Buying something because I wanted it, not because it was useful to someone else. Each choice felt radical. Each one reinforced the same truth. My life didn't exist to stabilize theirs. The hardest part wasn't the distance from my family. It was unlearning the reflex to sacrifice myself to keep everyone else comfortable. But with every boundary I held, something inside me grew steadier, stronger, and I realized I wasn't losing my family. I was losing a version of myself that had been quietly disappearing for years. 6 months passed before my sister reached out again. When her name appeared on my screen, my stomach tightened out of habit. Old instincts don't disappear just because you stop feeding them. I stared at the phone for a long moment before opening the message. "Samantha, I'm not asking for money." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until I exhaled. A second message followed. "Samantha, we figured things out. We found a sitter. We had to budget. It wasn't fun, but we did it." I read the words twice. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were honest in a way I wasn't used to hearing from her. A few minutes later, another message appeared. "Samantha, I shouldn't have tried to drop the kids on you like that. Ryan said if someone did that to us, we'd lose it." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something new. I typed back slowly. "Me. I'm glad you figured it out. You're their parents. You will." That was it. No reopening old wounds. No renegotiating boundaries. Just clarity. We didn't suddenly become close. My mom didn't call to apologize. The distance stayed, but it softened into something quieter, less volatile. And my life? It expanded. My apartment felt like mine again. The spare key stayed exactly where it belonged, unused. I stopped jumping at every notification. Midnight texts no longer felt like commands. One evening I sat on my couch, lights low, city glowing outside my window, and realized something that made my throat tighten. I hadn't ruined my family. I hadn't abandoned anyone. I had simply stopped playing a role that was hurting me. They survived. The kids were fine. The world didn't collapse because I said no. What ended wasn't love. It was access. And in the space where obligation used to live, something better finally grew. Peace.